Yo, it's the Master Connector coming at you, live and direct. This ain't AI, it's that real human connect. Yo, welcome to the Master Connector show, where the real ones pull up and the energy grow. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we live. LinkedIn and YouTube, where the real ones vibe. Started back in 2020, now the movement legit. Hundreds of episodes, and we still never quit. Steve Spiro, the Master Connector on attack. Rob Genovese, the brand builder, got his back. Two introverts, turned masters of connection. 28 years deep, built on trust and direction. No fake networking, no pin slapping attacks. We build real relationships, and that's all facts. Famous guests, athletes, authors, TEDx flames. Military leaders elevating the game. Pack 30 minutes, but the impact hits strong. Jump in the comments and connect all show long. Be authentic, stay others focused. Have grit, build community strong.
Yeah, that's how we are.
Be authentic, stay others focused. Have grit, build community strong.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovese, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today live, and I hope you're here live because this is where it's happening in order to get that interaction that you're looking for. That's what live is all about. You know, if you can't join us live, we understand you're busy, but be sure to go to masterconnector.show, go to our website, and you can see the roster of amazing guests that we have coming on the show in the future. And then you can bookmark your calendar and make sure you tune in live for at least that one, because, you know, you get to get your questions answered when you're on live with us. And we got a great show. Like I said, Steve brings on amazing guests, and today's no different. Today's show, this is going to be interesting. The power of the fork. Now, listen, I'm Italian. I grew up Italian parents on both sides. Sunday was the day to engage with your fork. I mean, it wasn't a Sunday unless you woke up to meatballs cooking on the pot on the stove, and we had macaroni. We ate all kinds of stuff. So I know a little bit about the power of the fork. But when you're Italian, it's a little different. I remember when my wife and I were first dating, and I invited her over for a holiday. She's all Irish, like as Irish as they come. So we eat the first course. We are done, and she goes, "Wow, that was really good. Thank you so much. It's delicious." And I go, "What are you talking about? There's 2 more courses." See, when you sit down in an Italian household, you are eating for 3 to 4 hours. I didn't tell her that, but look, we're going to be talking about food, how you can connect with people over meals. And we got a great guest who's going to talk about all about that better than I can. I just grew up with it. So listen, we're all connectors here. We want you to get in the comments, put your questions in the comments, get them answered. All right. Because we are all connectors here, but there's only one master connector. So let's bring him on, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
Hello, there we are. Hey, we doing? How's it going there? Good to be on. I'll tell you what, honestly, I love to eat, you know, so I got my fork. I'm ready here. I don't know, for my Japanese or Asian folks, I love sushi. I got my chopsticks, because not everybody does forks, right? I mean,
you got them all.
More chopsticks, right? So, but yeah, food is where it's at. And so I appreciate you, buddy. And I know we've had quite a few meals, broken bread at multiple diners over the years. So appreciate you big time. But what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. Man, what a show we have for you. So, hey, question. When was the last time a meal changed the direction of your life? You know, here, listen, as the Master Connector, I often share the most meaningful connections are made through, they aren't necessarily made through mass networking, collecting business cards, or sending LinkedIn requests. They're made when people slow down long enough to truly hear and understand one another. And that happens over a meal. Now, that being said, doesn't mean you connect with somebody and you automatically go for a meal. And that'd be cool, but that's not always going to happen. May not be realistic. Obviously, there's people you network around the country. But when it's possible, it's amazing. And there's magic that happens over meal. Like I said, breaking bread together. You know, barriers come down. I love talking from stage about breaking barriers to create real human connection in this digital era. There's nothing better than having a meal together, and so sometimes you can, substitute. In fact, we were talking a little bit backstage in green room. I had my sandwich going on, catching up on my meal. So you could do that on a Zoom. You can kind of, and I know some people don't like chewing in front of people on camera, so that's fine too. But the point I'm making is what I would like to suggest to you, and I was at an event last night in Stanford with a good friend, Brandon Godoris, and he had a speaker school thing, and I was there, and there was a bunch of people and got a bunch of business cards. But the secret doesn't happen. The magic doesn't happen by just grabbing somebody's card or just happen at the event. Sure, you'll be able to make some initial impression, but you're not going to build a relationship through that. The secret's in the follow-up. And so I recommend a lot of times, if you can, have a follow-up Zoom or call or whatever platform you like. I like Zoom if it's video. You do FaceTime, whatever. But get that. And then if there's real synergy and you feel good, maybe if there's possible, take it to another step and connect over a meal. Now I'm excited. And actually, it's funny. We're talking about synchronicity or it's a God thing. I don't know. But Dave Moravec, he just come in the chat, and I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be at a speaker retreat going on in Cincinnati at the Great Wolf Den Lodge, whatever. And Dave actually found out I was going to be there. It's in his town, and he is hosting me, and we're going to break lots of bread together. So I'm excited to be able. Dave, you're the man. I appreciate you. Looking forward to really getting to know you and over a meal. So listen, if you're ready to have my man Robbie G, because I don't want to talk anymore. I want to have Nancy get on here. So type in the comments. Let's go, Robbie G. I pass it to you, buddy.
All right, let's go, everyone. Today's guest is Nancy May, an accomplished entrepreneur, author, media innovator, and trusted advisor to Fortune 500 CEOs and corporate boards. From advertising executive to governance expert recognized by Forbes, Nancy's built a remarkable career helping leaders navigate business and relationships. She was an early pioneer in podcasting with Boardroom's Best and Elder Care Success, and today is developing a media network focused on food and its role in our lives. But beyond her impressive credentials, Nancy is passionate in helping people create authentic human connections. Her message reminds us that some of life's most important conversations happen around the table. Please welcome to the show, Nancy May. What's up, Nancy?
Great to have you on here, Nancy. It's funny because when you and I were planning to put this together and have you on the show, I like the title, the Power of the Fork, because it kind of can be a pun, whether we intended to be not, right? Fork in the road, because so many directions can happen. Things can happen with that fork, right? Fork in the road or the fork we're eating. So it's pretty cool. I'm just excited. And before we get into the questions, I want to acknowledge, number one, amazing Yolanda. It's funny because we were on, my mom loves the show. She gets to watch it on YouTube after the fact. My mom is one of my biggest fans. And, we're watching it. I went to visit her on that Sunday after the show. And she's like, oh, yeah, I noticed that Yolanda's on there again. So that was awesome. Seeing Yolanda. So Yolanda, glad to be on here with you and have you on with us as well. And Dave, of course. And Cody, new friend, Cody Washeil. I'm probably butchering it. So great having you on, Cody, here. And of course, Yolanda saying, let's go and hooray, hoo-ha. Yes, exactly. Let's go. All right. So let's get into the fork. So community, type in #fork. So here's the question, Nancy, and excited to have you on here. Why do you believe some of the most meaningful relationships are built around a meal rather than at a networking event? Kind of touched on that, but I want to hear your perspective.
Oh, well, networking events are important. Obviously, you are the master networkers. So like 3 cheers for that, or maybe 10 cheers for that one, or a toast, since we're talking about food. But the ability to have a more intimate relationship with somebody and really get to know who they are can happen over a quiet conversation or just even observing people's style and tactics around food. Right? I mean, so you're Italian, Rob, and you certainly understand that at home, but in a restaurant, it's a whole nother story. And it's the subtleties of I would say you learn whether you want to work with somebody or not. And that's both sides. Had many experiences on that. And the deals that go down or happen or up over a meal are just amazing. I mean, the research alone says that, I think there was a study that was done by Babson College that the average person who sits, or a team of people who sit together over a meal, will have an increase of about 12 to 15% more in profit over a meal conversation.
Wow.
Right.
So it's interesting. You said something. You said people will sit down with a meal with you, and they may decide to want to do business or not. And for
Or you
years,
decide not to do business with them because they're jerks.
yeah,
So you
or they
find
have
out.
terrible table manners like
Yeah.
me. Like I had to like learn that stuff. I was not
Or
taught how to
treat the wait
like
staff terribly.
talk
Yeah.
with your mouth full and like all the crazy stuff, right? That that some people. My mentor said to me, he said, "Hey, Steve, that's common sense." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not so common." Yeah, I don't really. He's like, I guess common sense is not so common, but yeah. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. Welcome, Scott. Scott's a new friend as well. Glad to have Scott on the call with us as well. So, but yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep the ball rolling. I want to talk about trust, right? Because
Mm.
to me, listen, the reason I call, people call me the master connector is not, and not the master networker, because to me, it's about connection. And
Mhm.
it's funny. I think the world, we've lost our mind. A lot of the world, not us, right? We're pitch slapping, we're spamming. Everyone, listen. Did you forget the fact? I don't care AI or no AI. You still, people do business with people they know, like, and
Yeah.
trust. Like, people want to get to the spam, they want to get to the pitch, and then it's like, okay, you want to marry me before you even date me? I mean, come on, like, what's up with that? So let's talk about trust.
Mhm.
Community tag in hashtag trust. So community. So Nancy, here's the question: what is it about sharing food together that accelerates trust between people?
Well, first of all, you have an extended period of time together. It's kind of like being locked in a room or locked at the table,
Yeah.
especially if there's just two of you. I think that's where the level of connection happens even at a higher plane because there's not some other distraction or somebody else sitting at the table. But in doing so, there are a couple of different things that happen. One is you can observe how somebody orders and how they treat the staff. That's one thing. If they're treating people badly, you immediately
Mhm.
know, I would say, or have a good insight into their character,
Yeah.
right? Human character goes a long way. I've been on the other side of the table and seen what's happened on not as a wait staff, but just watching, observing. The
Right.
other is that the ability to have silence and listen
Mm.
to how somebody else responds or involves himself in, I say, spilling the beans, pun intended,
There you go.
in character and style and who they are. And if you just listen to their story, open one question, and then I say, just shut it.
Zipit.com.
And the most important skill that we have is especially in business is our ears.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just watching and hearing how they behave. I have learned so much about some very interesting and powerful people that I never would have expected unless it happened at a meal. And honestly, I've been offered board positions over a meal because I sat back and I listened and I was able to stop and pause and not react to a question, but thoughtfully think it through. Because you have the ability to actually stop and pause and chew to get your thoughts.
Yeah.
So use the power of your your fork to use the pause more easily, I'll say.
I like that.
Well, clearly, when you sit down with somebody, the act of eating kind of disarms people a little bit, I'm sure, where they get to feel a little bit more like themselves, right? Because eating, however you eat, like you can't fake eating. You can't fake what you're going to be doing. It relaxes you a little bit. But I want to ask you a question. So are we talking, does the power of the fork only work with one other person on the other side of the table? Does it diminish with more people at the table?
I would say no, it depends upon the situation. So I'll give one example that just blew my mind. And when it happened, I was pissed as hell. It's the only way I can describe it, right? I have a tendency to be pretty frank and direct in certain situations, but this was a meeting that I was invited to give a pitch and presentation at. And the company asked me to arrive about an hour and a half early because they expected things to move a little faster. They did. It was the hottest day of the year. I was put into a room where the sun was beating in around noontime. The entire board decided to have lunch. Nobody offered me or my colleague lunch. while we waited for it ended up being 2.5 hours as opposed to what the time was supposed to be. And they had completed their meals, were relaxed, had moved around the room and gotten up, taken bathroom breaks. And when they came back, not only did I see how they handled what was left of the food on the table, but they looked at us and said, "Oh, you didn't have lunch?" So never even thought about being considerate in that situation, right? So, all right, okay, Ching, this may not be a client I want to deal with. Second of all, I also took the time to observe how the seating was happening at the table. The power person at the front, and then what I call the lapdog, who was in a weaker position, but was going to be heir to the chair because it was a closely held, very large public company, but family controlled business. And that individual was practically sitting on the lap of the guy who wanted control. So just observing the power, or I wouldn't say it was the power, the lack of power at the table, and how they handled everybody in that situation was so obvious the minute I walked into the room. And their lack of manners and courtesy. Do you want to do business with somebody like that?
Yeah,
I
no
don't.
doubt. It helps reveal character. So we're not going to talk. We're going to ask. I was going to ask about that, but we're not going to touch on that. But I
No, it
want
was
to say
hard for
this.
me to not walk out of that room and say, "See you later,
Yeah.
guys.
I
I'm
mean,
done."
Steve, we heard that years ago, right? They would say, because I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for Steve, but I know he feels the same way. I was very clueless, very clueless. Like I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know how to socialize. I didn't know how to do anything. And I remember, a mentor said, "Look, if you want to know if somebody's worth spending time with, just have a meal with them."
Yeah.
And look, I'm Italian, so I'm just thinking, well, eating, sure. But I didn't really understand the significance of what you just said, which is, you get an insight into the type of people they are based on not just how they eat, but how they treat the others who they're eating with, right?
And they're not just talking wait staff. We're talking the other people at the table. It's the power play that happens very quietly and very subtly. And, in a meal in a situation like that, you're not focused on the food.
Yeah.
You're really focusing on the behaviors, the words, the actions, the style, every subtle little detail, and how the individuals reveal who they are.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and there is no differentiation in class and level of social economic status, but there is a level of, I'll call, class that takes place at the table that tells you about the nature and character of the individual.
Yeah. That was not me for a long time. You were talking about listening. When there's listening to them while they're eating. That might have been me slurping my soup and all those kinds of things, crazy stuff. But I want to bring a question here that Dave Morvick had. So, is there an opportunity to interview staff members before employment to see if they're a fit? What are your thoughts on that, Nancy?
Absolutely. And pre-COVID, there was a woman who was an executive coach who asked me to a high tea, so this was the girl thing, right? Guys, you can do this too. And at the end, she had said, I coach a lot of people, but I would say you have, and I'm not sort of patting myself on the back. She said, I would say that you have this sense of leadership style higher than anybody I've ever coached, which was a high compliment.
Yeah.
And I asked her why. And I said, because you took the time to just slow down, stop, observe, listen, and then respond. So that was a situation. But when you're interviewing somebody, you want to see the same thing too. Now, there's an old, I don't know whether it's a true story or not. There's some comments that they say Henry Ford and J.C. Penney and some other senior executives had, or at least CEOs had done over the years, where they would invite people to a meal. And if they salt or peppered or seasoned their food before they even taste it, they wouldn't hire them.
Interesting.
With the idea that if they didn't take in the details or understand the platform that they were working with first, they wouldn't be hired. Now, that's, I don't know. I wasn't at that table. And I'm not sure I would condemn somebody for that today, especially if you're going to, let's say, a diner, right, where they may not necessarily. But if you're at a high-end restaurant, everybody's taste is a little different. So I wouldn't worry so much about that.
Yeah. My dad, God rest his soul, no matter what, always put ketchup on everything, because he
It's
liked
a
ketchup,
style.
right?
It's
Hey,
okay.
yeah, it's true.
But the
Well,
other thing too is it also gives you opportunity to see how comfortable somebody is when there's silence.
right,
And I
no
think
doubt.
that's really important because there's always silence in a meal, right? You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
chew with your mouth full. And
right.
if they're comfortable in a conversation and know how to keep a conversation going over an extended period of time and just fermer les bouches, as they say,
Yeah,
when necessary, not just when chewing, but allowing other people to have part of the conversation. That's
yeah.
good.
And I want to dig into that a little bit. So, community typing hashtag conversation. You know, I think there's some people, perhaps that was me a while ago. I'm curious your perspective on what do you talk about, right? So, like,
Yeah.
if you're there, is it business? Is it personal? How do you figure out where the conversation could go, should go? What's your thoughts on and so the question is, why is the art of listening often more important than the art of speaking at the table? But I'm curious more on you could cover that a little bit. You kind of did already, but I want to talk a little bit about besides that on where to go with the conversation, if any.
So it depends upon why you're meeting, of
Yeah,
course, and what the nature of the outcome is going to be. Yeah,
sure.
I would say you tend not to generally close a deal at a table, but you certainly can open it. I have closed
Mm,
deals, quite frankly, surprisingly, at meals sometimes.
yeah,
But the relationship is so strong. I mean, I can remember one very clearly at breakfast. This was up at the Lowe's Regency up in New York, which you're probably familiar. It was like one of the
yeah,
power breakfast places at the time. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've been there because we're now down in Florida, and I don't know if it is, but I'm presuming it still is a power place. And the individual I was meeting with was also an extremely powerful and influential person, had been a CEO and quite accomplished, and they gawked at everybody else in the room. So
mm,
in those particular cases, you sit down, you just keep quiet and let them gawk. You're going to learn a little bit about their insecurities and then slowly bring in the conversation of, so how is, whatever it is, the small talk that allows you to get to the bigger deals
yeah,
and let the conversation happen. Don't force it.
yeah. I learned this years ago. I think Rob and I both learned this. The art of small talk.
Very
And
important. Very important.
so important on how to and and not make small talk. Number one, you want to avoid alienating people. Try to
Not
avoid
superficial.
not superficial,
No
not
politics.
alienating, right? Avoid politics. They say religion. I mean, you could sort of get a feel for that before, and
Mhm.
you might be able to dabble into that if you know where their faith stands. But that's a tricky one. But yeah, just knowing how to small talk that's relevant, right? One of my mentors said he said people talk about wood ticks, lunatics, and politics, right? Rob, you've heard that, right? It's
I'm going to remember
like
that one.
nonsensical stuff. Like, who cares? Like, why
Right.
talk about that? Let's talk about stuff that's maybe a little bit more meaningful and again, asking good questions. That's what
Right.
I speak about from stage a lot is listening and asking good questions. So important,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I want to kind of keep the ball rolling here. So I want to talk a little bit about discernment. And I think part of the question I asked was related to that. So community type in hashtag discernment. So have you ever walked away from a meal knowing you should never do business with someone?
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't know if
I
that's
just mentioned that one,
yeah, that's
certainly that
true.
before.
Yeah,
That was probably the most, I would say, angry I was over a
yeah,
meal. There have been others as well where somebody was just rude and nasty and
mhm,
inhospitable, and that's not the kind of person, their character. If somebody's personal character is flawed,
yeah,
I don't want to deal with it. There was another meal I remember having, and it wasn't intentional, other than it was a way to get to know the CEO, and their number one rainmaker had made the introduction. Wanted to make sure that I had dinner with the CEO and them to sort of bring me in to do some work. And the CEO was obviously had a lot of, I would say, personal and professional insecurities that were going on. So, you want to be helpful to somebody and you listen and you offer a suggestion without solving the problem, but just guide them down a path to simply make them a little bit more comfortable. And if you can do that, that puts you in a position, okay, of the power of the fork. It puts you in a higher level position to make the other person feel comfortable and relaxed. That's ultimately your goal, whether you're a host or a guest, is to make the other person that you're meeting with as comfortable and relaxed so that they open up and share.
Yeah.
It's
You know, I
kind of a
haven't-
bit of a psychology game. At the end, we're walking back to from the dinner place back to, I was going to Grand Central, they were going to Penn Station, and they asked me, "So where did you get your PhD?" I was confused, like, PhD? I don't have a PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solved a lot of problems. But you know as well as I do that when you have years of experience, the amount or the ability to see problems and the solutions to those problems fall into buckets.
Yeah.
And you don't assume that things are going to happen. And they say never use the term assume. It makes an ass of you and me, right?
Yeah.
You know, the old story.
Yeah.
But if you can help sort of guide the way to make somebody understand that maybe they should open their eyes to other opportunities or other solutions to a very difficult situation without telling them what to do.
Yep.
That's how that conversation should go.
So, so we're talking a lot about the purpose of a meal, and you've been in a lot of business meal situations. I have not, over meals anyway. But when you're sitting with somebody, we're talking about some of your horror stories, right? And of course, you have a lot of success stories as well, right? The person was absolutely magnificent, and the meal went well, and you did business, right? Tell us, have you ever gotten so turned off that you've actually left before the meal even began? Like, have you had situations like
No.
that?
No,
Yeah.
I've never done that. I've been uncomfortable in a large networking situation where there's a lot of alcohol, and
Mm.
a glass of wine too. I'm done. I don't need to deal with those situations. So I just walk out of them. I don't need a drunken brawl. Thank you, or just a bunch of bad behaving senior leaders who. There were a few I should have left, but I didn't. And I would say on the flip side, you can use a meal to also deliver bad news
Mm.
and make it easy and
Mm.
comfortable. And I'll give you one example is, excuse me, I had heard that the chairman of a board I was having a glass of wine meeting to have a glass of wine with was very excited about a gentleman that he was going to ask to join his board who was the international president of one of the largest companies in the country, if not the world. And going there, I had my news radio turned on. This is pre-COVID. Listen to what's happening in the local news. To hear that that individual had been brought up on Foreign Corrupt Practice Act charges. Now, bribes happen. They do take place in different countries, but not allowed in ours. And so the chairman was very excited. Oh, we're going to ask so-and-so to be on board. And I said, sit down, have a glass of wine. No, you're not. Now, obviously, they had not taken the time to do their due diligence either on the individual. Those things are discoverable if you know how to ask the right questions. And most board members don't. They trust it to their large consultants who also trust that work to a junior level person who doesn't know how to do so.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yeah.
One of the things, back to kind of the conversation, I want to talk a little bit about that real quick. So I think sometimes people don't know what to say or what to talk about. I'll just suggest this. And as you're talking to people, and this could be over a meal or it could be over a Zoom call or even just in a networking setting, just if you start with a simple question like, so what's your story? Like if you don't know them,
Yeah.
or another one is if you've connected with them before, hey, so bring me up to speed. What's been going on? Like just some kind of open-ended question.
Why did you want to meet?
You could do that. Yeah, I ask a question.
It's a little bit more direct.
You could. I say this. I say, so what was the impetus behind wanting to jump on a call with the crazy guy they call the master connector? I use a lot
You
of
did that
times.
with me.
You're right. I did. That's right. Because it just, I find it's interesting, it opens it up. And I think it allows kind of people to kind of just say things that are, because I think people are waiting for the ball to drop. They're waiting. Okay,
Yeah.
what's about to
The
come,
pitch.
or the pitch or something, and it just helps them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
If you can make the conversation about the other person, not
Yeah.
about you,
way better.
just understand whoever it is that's across the table in some way, shape, or form is your customer. And it should always be about the customer. It should not be about you.
Well, speaking about being about you,
Hmm.
Nancy, thank you again for being on here. I want to give you an opportunity. If you have something you want to share with the community, any next steps or any call to action, whatever you want. The floor is yours for a minute or so.
Sure. Well, as I say, the tagline of in our current podcast, which is Family Food Stories, is every meal is a story and every story is a feast. So if you think about that in networking and having a conversation with a colleague or a friend or a family member, then I think that's a pretty good groundwork to move forward. And every conversation really does have an opportunity for either the next one or your decision to say,
Sayonara.
I'm done. It gives you the ability to have control. So, and I hope that
Yep.
you'll go to our podcast and have a little fun in between, which
Yeah.
is podcast.familytreefoodstories.com. And there you can get the book, which is what we're doing. Of course, governance is my background over, nearly 40 years of board governance. But I have to tell you, more relationships have been built or have decided to walk away based on a meal.
Yeah. No, we appreciate you, Nancy. Thank you so much for blessing our community.
You're
Gonna have
welcome.
you go in the green room, but keep up the great work. Keep doing the great work.
Take
Appreciate
care.
you big time.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. All right, awesome. So amazing. Well, listen, if you like that, which I know you did, next week's a 265 episode, we're going to be with Shane Barker. What people say about you. Interesting, right? Hopefully in could be behind your back or in person, right? June 17th, same bad time, same bad channel. If you want to see more, learn more about our some of the up and coming episodes, and you want to learn about how to be a sponsor of an episode like we've had my man Russ Hedge do, or you want to learn how to be a guest, go to masterconnected.show. So I'm gonna and by the way, check out Rob G's book, Don't Fear the Brand. Just saying, it's an amazing book. But thanks everyone for being on here. I want to end with a story. Before becoming one of the world's most respected chefs and humanitarian leaders, Jose Andres arrived in America with little more than his culinary skills and a belief that food could bring people together. Through restaurants, disasters, relief efforts, and his work with World Central Kitchen, he proved that a shared meal can create dignity, connection, and hope, even in the darkest circumstances. Listen, let's let his story remind us that every meal is an opportunity to serve, connect, and inspire, and that each of us can be a beacon of light to the world. Folks, let's remember to shine our light. God bless. We'll see you next week.
Yo, welcome to the Master Connect, the show where the real ones pull up and the energy grow. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we love so long.